Welcome everyone to My Self-Reliance, our community connection, our Tuesday night chat. I'm Kelly Wilkins and it's so great to be with you all. This is the place where we get together live and in person on a Tuesday. We connect and we often have guest speakers who are sharing with us their knowledge and information that helps us to be free. The more that we're able to be self-reliant through educating ourselves, the more we're able to make choices that allow us to be free. And that's where we got started in 2021, recognizing that when we're in lockdown, we didn't have a lot of choice. And so this is where we began to connect. Since then, we started to run courses. We started with permaculture and food canning classes. Now we are running expos and festivals. So if you're not already signed up to our newsletter, pop your email in the chat, or you can reach out to me at kelly@myselfreliance.com.au, and I'll be able to send you all the information as it comes up. Tonight, we are very excited to be continuing our conversation from 2 weeks ago when we started talking about the farmers and the avian bird flu with the common law. And we found that was a huge conversation. It went much longer than usual, but fortunately, we have Tahlia from the Living Council and also Kaedy joining us tonight. Welcome, lovely ladies.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It's such a privilege to meet all these people and to be in your space, Kelly. Thanks for that.
No, we're very excited. And because it's such a big conversation to have around what does it take to live free. So before we jump into that, I just want to say if you are meeting me for the first time, and this is the first time you're coming across My Self-Reliance, one of the things that we've done recently is we've actually created memberships so that, you know, we do have lots of lovely loyal followers to My Self-Reliance. And I've, been working off this, putting together these ticketed events to really fund what I do here, because I am a homeschooling mum and I lost my job during COVID as a special needs teacher, and I'm preferring not to go back to that. Not even that I can go back to that, but in order to be on this journey with you all, we're creating lots of events, and that really helps me to keep up doing what I'm doing. But more in particularly, what we're creating is my self-reliance memberships, so that we can begin to create events in your area. And so that's why these gatherings on a Tuesday night are so important, because I find out what you're interested in and what's important to you, and then we can create community events near you. So we have some community gathering in WA and through our hub leaders. When you go on to our membership link, and I'll put that in the chat group, you'll be able to see that. If you would like to become a hub leader in your area and begin with the support of our team, begin a My Self-Reliance community in your area, then we will give you the training, additional help and everything that you need to be able to get these monthly, weekly get-togethers that will help serve you and your community. So we will talk more about that as we go through. But let's just start off from where we left off in our last call. We were talking about how, as a business, as individuals, as property owners, as farmers, what does it take to tell people, you can't come on my land, you can't take my chickens or my bees, and what we found out of our conversation 2 weeks ago, that we really needed a cheat sheet. We really needed I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Where do we start? And thank goodness we come to you, because you have a cheat sheet, right? You have step by step what is it? What do we need to do? So I'm going to hand the time over to you first,
Yeah,
Tahlia.
yeah. I mean, I think it's such a great question to ask, and I think it's a question you ask for many different areas of life, in which, you know, the bees and the chickens are just one small example of where the powers that be kind of encroach on our life. And so while, you know, you're talking about one very specific thing, this is affecting many things in life, isn't it? Like, isn't it just, it's there everywhere, and people are experiencing it in their jobs, their children, the kids' school, their pets, their work, their livelihood, how they function day in and day out. So it's a very real, very hot topic because it's affecting everybody. I think because the beautiful thing about our two sort of little groups running side by side, Kelly, is that yours, uh, while you're focused on creating positive results and helping to be people to be self-sustainable, and mine is more on the law front, it very much lines up together. And I think you'll find there's a similar flavor in the sense that it all comes down to, it starts with, and we were just talking about this earlier today in our meeting, it starts with a concept called sui juris. Does anybody know what sui juris means? If you do, feel free to speak up.
No,
Anybody?
I don't know. So let me see in the chat. Does anyone want to hazard a guess? No?
Barry put his hand up. Barry, what do you reckon? Give us a shot. What do you think? Tell us what sui juris is.
Well, it's Latin for in your own right.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it's your lowercase name where you hold all your rights and no obligations.
Yep, man, you have been reading a lot. That's great. So that is, there you go, walking, talking dictionary. You don't need me, you got Barry. So sui juris, in a nutshell, is being able to stand in your own right of you are a living man or woman and you are sovereign right now. So you don't need to do anything else. You are sovereign right now. That's just how it is. And the moment you can realize I'm sovereign right now, I can stand in my own right. So it's sort of like you are and you are becoming. You're both. Okay. So you're becoming more and more sui juris. You're becoming more and more standing in your own right. And the way that you do that is things like this. When you get together with Kelly every week and you're learning new things and you're starting to take responsibility, that's a key part of sui juris. Then you actually start to notice that your posture changes and you're able to handle what comes to you, whether that's to do with bees, whether it's to do with police, whether it's to do with the courts or the fines that come to your direction. If you can learn and you can embody and you can understand, like really take into yourself. And I know I said understand. We're not going to pick on understand. We're just going to go with the flow here, okay? So if you can really adopt that and take it inside internally and learn, I'm not my straw man. I am not the entity that the powers that be have put on me. I'm me. I'm living, flesh, walking, talking me. And the things that I have are mine. They don't belong to anybody else. So your businesses, you have control over, they don't. And so there's this elusive thing that says, oh, you know what? They think they can come in and take control of me. They think they can stop you from driving by saying you're punished for not paying a fine. We're taking your license away. That's ridiculous because you have rights. You have the right to travel. You have the right to property. And most people don't realize that those rights are only rights if you express them. So you have the right to have your property. You have the right to own chickens. Okay? That's a right that you have. And these powers that be come along and they stomp all over your rights. And so it's about understanding what are rights and how do they fit together. So there's different levels of law and things like that, which we'll go into as the conversation goes on. But the first and the most important thing to remember is that you do not have rights unless you express them. So if someone comes in and they're saying you need to burn your bees because of some mysterious problem with bees that they just all of a sudden think exists, and you don't say, no, then you don't have rights. But if you say no, because I have the right to have my bees, and you have to prove something exists, because remember, it's guilty, it's innocent until proven guilty. Remember this concept? If you don't express your rights, then you don't have them. And so it's really important that you understand you do have rights. You do have the right to own property. You do have the right to be silent. You do have the right to say, where's the evidence? There's many, many different rights. So that's a good little all over you to start.
Yeah, perfect. And that's a really good way to sum up how, so knowing that we have rights to start with gives us more confidence to start using our voice. Now, I know that there's a process that we need to go through so that we can express our rights in the right way, because there's no point being a tantrum about it, because that doesn't get us anywhere. No. So now you and I talked about this a lot in length yesterday, and so I didn't want to step over anything because I got my questions answered in our conversation. So coming from the point of view of the viewers, anyone in this group that still had questions left over from last week that wanted to get them answered, please pop them into the chat. We want to hear your questions. But let's talk about the process of understanding and learning our rights. What we last week we talked about, okay, having no trespassing signs, but then that doesn't do a whole lot if you don't know what they should read or where you should put them or understanding what they mean. So yeah, tell us a step that people can take, because I know there's a long process, but there's also got to be, you know, what we can do in the meantime.
Right now. Yep. Because it's needed right now. So I would like to just explain a little bit of a concept first, and then explain how trespass notices would fit into the concept, if that's okay. So the first things first is there are layers to law, okay? And so you've got you've got to imagine we've got little houses, okay? We're all part of little houses, and we're going to call those little places jurisdiction. All right. So that's like if I go into, my kids are homeschooled, and let's say they go to Helensvale Public School and they walk into the school and the teacher says, hey, you're not wearing a hat, put it on. And my kids can go, I'm not part of your jurisdiction. I actually don't go to this school. And so I don't need to listen to you. Okay. And so they don't have to put a hat on because they're not a student in the school. All right. So that's called jurisdiction. And we have lots of different jurisdictions. If you can imagine, if my children went to Kelly's house, they're in her jurisdiction, and so they would need to abide by her rules, okay? If her kids came to my place, they would be in my jurisdiction and abide by my rules. Some people, I wouldn't want to send my kids to their house. Kelly, that's fine, okay? And so that's called jurisdiction. Sometimes people use these fancy words and they don't really fully comprehend what they mean. So that's the first thing to understand. The second thing to understand is that we have different layers and also different timelines. So when something is formed in law, it stands, okay? And then if a new law comes along in the time frame, that new law has to abide by the previous law, okay? If it is in contrast to the previous law, then the previous law trumps. Okay, so if I have a law that's written last year and then one that's written this year, if the one that this year contradicts the one from last year, then the one this year does not stand. Okay, so what that means, the principle is first in time, best in law. Okay, so when something is previous, it stands stronger, and then it builds from that. Okay, so that's a concept you need to understand, is first in time, best in law. And you also need to understand that many, 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 many years ago, there were kings and there were plebs. Okay, we would be like the little plebs, and then there would be kings, and they would understand law, and they would understand things called God's law or the law of nature. I'm sure you've probably come across this in conversations or on channels or whatever. And that's where we call the maxims of law. You may have heard of that. That all sits in what we call equity. Yeah, you will have heard of equity court. Equity is like the spirit of something. So it's like the attitude behind. All right. So if I say, hey, you need to do no harm, that's an equity, that's a spirit, that's a notion, an idea, a concept. That is a maxim. Okay, do no harm. And so then the king was like, all right, I understand that. I've got to do no harm. But how do I measure that for my people? And so he put in kingsmen, who then put out, okay, to do no harm, that means you can't punch, you can't hit, you can't kick. Oh, and you can't take that property, and you can't do, and they are statutes, acts, codes, and legislations, or laws. Okay, so you got God's law at the top, which is where maxims of law fit in, which is where equity is. Okay, so that's the vibe, the spirit, the equity is up the top. Then in order to try and help people like you and I to be able to outwork that spirit of law came laws. Now, at the moment, you and me, we live in those acts, statutes, and code. What we want to do, and they want to control you, they, whatever that is, want to control you in those lower levels, in acts, statutes, and codes. Your goal is to move into the higher level of law. Okay, your goal is to move into equity. So what does that look like today? Equity, the best way to move into equity is in what we call trust law. Okay, I hope you're taking notes here, guys, because this is gold. I'm telling you, this is gold. And trust law, it moves you away from commerce, which is like you do this and I'll do that, you know, that kind of thing. And it moves you into relationship. Okay. And if you come out of the statutes, acts, and codes, and you lean onto trust law, they can't touch you. They can't touch your chickens. They can't touch your bees. They can't touch your soil. They can't touch you because it's in a different part of law. Okay. And even if you were to be taken into court, you can't go into the local court. You have to go into court of equity, which is the higher courts. Okay. So how do we do that? How do we take us and everything that's important to us and put it into trust law? I know that, Kelly, you mentioned PMAs were thrown around. The word PMA was thrown around last week. Whoever said that, sensible person. Okay. To give you a bit of a summary, what they're talking about is get out of this and move into trust law. Come out of, so if I move out of my home and I go into Kelly's home, I'm going into a different jurisdiction. So when you create a PMA, which stands for Private Members Association, when you do that, you're actually moving yourself and everything into trust law. Okay, you know what? I'm going to give you an example. Who's good at punching here? No one's hands up. Who's good at punching? Come on, hand up. Who's good at punching? Who wants to throw me a punch? Come on, Ken. I know that you do. All right, let's just pretend Ken's a boxer, all right? Ken and I, we're on the street, yeah? Ken and I, we're going to have a bit of a punch up on the street. Now, if I throw a punch at Ken, the cop can come to me and he can say to me, oi, you're under arrest for assault. Let's just totally change the jurisdiction. And Ken and I are now in a boxing ring inside a sports club, and I throw a punch at Ken. Can the cop come and get me and arrest me?
No.
No, why? What's the difference? The same punch, same two people.
Mm.
We're still in Australia. What's the difference?
You've established. Yes.
The jurisdiction. And so what is it? When I get onto that boxing ring, what do? I sign a waiver. And I say, I agree to these terms and conditions. I'm going to come into a different association. I'm going to go into a private members association. And now, let's say I punch Ken and I'm in that boxing ring and I've signed that document. Even if Ken wanted to go and dob on me, he can't, because I'm now out of normal jurisdiction and I've gone into trust law. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, all right. So you have your home, you have your business, you have whatever you've got going on, right? You too, if you think, okay, I'm going to create a boxing ring, okay? And in that boxing ring, I need to have these rules in place. And anybody that wants to come into my boxing ring has to sign those rules. And what I can say, what I can stipulate in my articles of association, that's the document. What I can say in that is, if you step foot onto this property, then you are agreeing to my terms and conditions. Or you are not allowed to step foot on this property unless you agree to my terms and conditions. How exciting is that? How cool is that?
Yeah, that's great.
Can I share a really cool story, Kelly?
Please do.
Yeah? All right. There's a couple down in Melbourne, Rocky and, oh, guys, do you know who is it? Rocky
Bullwinkle. Rocky and Bullwinkle. We'll just call them that for now.
Okay, all right. I'm just going to go with Rocky. All right. So Rocky and his wife have a pub in Melbourne. And I don't know if you were aware or if even your pub got affected, but during COVID, many pubs shut down. Did you notice that? I noticed that, and so did Rocky. It's his business. So what he did was he took his whole pub and he created a members association for his pub. So anyone could enter the pub, even though the jurisdiction of Australia or Victoria said you can't go to the pub. Well, people came to the pub, they signed this members agreement and said, I'd like to join the members agreement, and they were allowed into the pub. They could drink, they could trade, they could do whatever they liked because they signed a document that waived the other jurisdiction and put them into this jurisdiction. And so all the way through COVID, and you remember how strict it was, and these guys are in Victoria, okay? So anyone from Victoria, you know what it was like. And they kept their doors open all the way through COVID because of a members agreement. Now, here's the thing. Those guys got harassed, they got bullied, the cops came after them, they did all of that, you know, crap that they did because they just want to be strong and they want to just show how big and strong they are. All right. So these cops came at them. 12 cops joined the members agreement and drank in the pub with the community. 12. A couple of years goes past, their place gets raided, the cops came in, they took alcohol, they took cash, they just bullied these people in a way that I would just never want anyone to be harassed like. Then those 12 cops, years have gone past, and just this year, those 12 cops, all of them wrote an affidavit. So an affidavit is a statement, you put a statement of truth. So the statement of truth is, I have blonde hair, I have blue eyes, I wear hearing aids. They're all statements, okay? And they are truth. And an affidavit, if it is unrebutted within after 28 days, an affidavit stands as law, okay? Now, these 12 cops all independently wrote an affidavit against Rocky and his wife, Rocky and Kaedy, okay? And so then they were going to go for this pub and take this pub down. Interestingly, in the agreement that they did, they said anyone who wants to come into this pub is welcome, but they come in as a living man or a living woman, not as any agent of a government or government body. So they all entered, all 12 of them came in as living men and women. Years go past, as you know, and now all 12 of them are coming at the pub in their jurisdiction as a police officer against Kylie and Rocky. They went against the members' agreement. In the members' agreement, it says that if you breach the rules of this members' agreement, you will personally be liable for something like $30,000 or no, it must have been $1 million. It was quite high. Quite high. I think it's probably about $1 million. Because each of them had signed the agreement and then broke the agreement by bringing external jurisdiction into the pub and trying to take them and their pub business into the public court system and take them out of that jurisdiction, they were in breach of the members' agreement that they signed. All 12 of them owe Rocky and Kylie $1 million. It is $1 million because I remember the $12 million. Now, then, and so all 12 of them were in breach of the members' agreement. They knew they were in trouble, and Rocky and Kylie got a phone call from the head of the police, the Commission of Police in Victoria, saying, can you transfer it off of these men and women and put it onto the police? We'll look after this. We'll pay you for it. Rocky and Kylie said, nope. All 12 of those men are shaking in their boots right now. They're about to lose everything they've got because on a cop's badge is their indemnity number. So they'll be indemnified by their insurance to pay Rocky and Kylie, but they'll lose their job and never find another job. Why do I tell you this story? I tell you this story to say PMAs are powerful, very powerful.
So how will they get paid? Like, can the PMA will hold up in court and then it's going to be up to the individual to come up with the goods? You'd wonder, so there's no wiggle room out of that for them?
No wiggle room. They signed it and they had the whole members' agreement there. They could read it. They knew what they were getting into. Just like if I wanted to punch you in a boxing ring, I sign it. I deal with the consequences of it.
That's
and
exciting.
The reason that they can't take it through court is because we're talking about trust law. We're talking about something completely different. They put all those cops into trust law, so they can't stand under jurisdiction under the Police Powers and Responsibilities Act because they took themselves out of it. Now imagine if you did that. Imagine if you set up a PMA for yourself and for your property, and then a cop comes in and you've got a little trespass notice on your thing just explaining, by the way, this is in PMA and you can't step on here, and you get the cop to the door and you go, hang on a minute, did you read the sign on the door, on the gate? Oh, no, okay, let's just walk out to the gate and you can stand on that side and I'll stand on this side. What do you want? Oh, we just want to speak to the person that's in charge of the association, please. Yep, there's the email on the sign there, just email them. And it's your choice whether you reply.
Isn't that what they do to us all the time?
Yeah. Why is it your choice to do that? Because it's another thing. It's called contracting and it's called commerce. Everything is about commerce. They just want to contract with you. They want to have a bit of a trade of funds. You can choose. Oh, I don't want a contract. I don't want that service. Thank you. In fact, you can even issue them your fee schedule and you can say, here you go. Here's my fee schedule. if you'd like to do business with me, it'll just cost you this much. Want to do it? Let's do it. I'll come down to the cop shop, but just so you know, it is $50,000 for me to go anywhere. That's my fee. Take it or leave it.
Mm. Who's feeling more empowered after hearing that? That's, yeah.
Me too. I might just go and get a PMA. I'm kidding, man.
Yeah. And so you were telling me that rather than people starting a PMA under another company, you're more powerful to have your own personal PMA. Can you explain that?
I did say that, yeah, because there's a lot of people that will be out there saying, join my PMA. And you know what? Kelly, I'm saying to Kelly, you need a PMA, mate. And so we're going to help Kelly set up her PMA. And what that will look like is when she's got it, she'll say to you, here's the members agreement. Do you agree with this? And in it'll have, these are what we value. These are what we don't value. We don't let people in for this. This is how much it costs, all that sort of stuff, right? And then if you want to continue being part of this club, then you sign the PMA and you get all the benefits of being inside the PMA. What will the benefit be? The benefit will be is if you join Kelly's PMA, you'll be able to be covered by whatever legislation. And one of the rules, that might be in her articles of association is no one from within this association is able to bring anyone else from within this association into outside jurisdiction. So we can't have any court battles going on between us. Okay, that's all for those people out there. It's not for us. We're just adulting here. Okay. Now, why it's important that you personally have a PMA is because you personally have things you need to carefully decide on what the rules are going to be. And what fits for me might not fit for you. What fits for Kelly might not fit for Wilma. And what fits for Linda might not work for Fiona. Okay, so everybody's situation is different. And you can have a PMA for your situation. So I have a PMA and it covers the Living Council. And anyone who wants to be part of the Living Council, they're covered in that situation. Okay, but it doesn't mean that when you're off out doing your house, that my PMA is going to cover you. So you need your own. And so you create your own rules there.
Right. And presumably you guide us on those rules because that's, yes, setting that up is very important and crucial in going forward.
Of course, yeah, we'll guide you. So the way the Living Council works is we will give you the templates and the bits and pieces, but that's like the tiniest little bit of the process. What we equip you with is, like I mentioned at the very beginning, is that sui juris to go, this is me, and this is how I'm going to be responsible with me and my life. And then we'll give you some templates and things, and then you go mold them, because you got to do it your way. And you can go mold them, and you'll pick things up in the course that we have online, and you'll go, oh, actually, I might add this little bit in here or take this bit away, and you can make it work for you. But, you can always have the community talk to each other. You might have a question, and then someone else in the group can say, oh, I did this for that or whatever. So, yeah, definitely guiding, but not so you are getting free for yourself, but you're not by yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's super important. We do have a question. What's the difference between a PMA and a UMA?
Oh, good question. Exactly the same. So a PMA is a private members association, and it stems from the US, and it all started when some natural medicine healers were wanting to do business in the US, and they weren't covered under normal jurisdiction. And so because they weren't covered under normal jurisdiction, they created private members associations. That's how it formed, the whole concept started.
Tahlia, keep talking because I've got to get a plug and plug in.
Okay. And then as that then formed into, actually this whole moving into trust law is applicable to anyone, and anybody can write it for any sort of business. In the US, it's called a private members association. In Australia, it's called an unincorporated members association. Exactly the same, just different names. And the reason that we use unincorporated is because the banks will just recognize it. They'll go, oh, I know what you mean. But if you say private members association or PMA, it just might not click. That's all. Nothing super different.
Beautiful. Now we do have another question.
Yep.
The chat. Can you read that? Not sure if you're okay, coming back to the trespassing sign. What about if you've signed for a firearms license, which gives police authority to come onto your property to check if you have firearms? Also in South Australia, we have contractors annually check and cutting trees from nearby power lines over my property. How do you tell them to not come on your property when you've signed other agreements, I suppose?
Everything, I mean, firearms is a bit of a tricky one. We're not like the US, unfortunately, in the sense that you have the freedoms with that, which makes me a bit cranky that they've tried to take that away from us. And firearms, actually, Kaedy, we had an issue where someone had firearms. The police came in, they took all the firearms off them. Kaedy, did you want to share a little bit about what happened there and your thoughts on the firearm side of things?
Let me just find Kaedy to pin her.
I've got to be careful about not speaking bad. That was somebody in another group that got into a little bit of trouble. And the difference was between what we do at Living Council and this other group are that the other group want to completely give up all association with the straw man and the public and completely live in the private. So these poor people that followed this group, they had legal firearms registered, and they went through the course, and they got to the stage of the course where this other group led them and said, okay, now we hand in all of our birth certificate and our passports and everything to do with the public. We hand it all back to them because now we're private men and women. And so that meant letting any registrations that were current with their weapons, it meant letting them lapse, which to me, like so that meant that they had previously registered weapons that became unregistered, and then all of a sudden, a dozen coppers in riot gear raided their homes. Yeah, so I don't think they had a PMA or a UMA in place, did they, Tahlia?
No, they didn't. And also, so what Kaedy is pointing out, and she's really good at explaining this clearly, is there's public and then there's private. If you choose to do the public front, then you need to do the public front. So if you have got a license for something, you use that. Okay. So if you've got a license for firearms and you've signed a contract, then you're there. It's there. Okay. So that's the deal. You can't go mixing the public and private thing. But what you can do is you can go, I'm going to put my private hat on. I'm going to put my public hat on. And when it comes to firearms, that's very different to chickens, isn't it?
Firearms and self-managed super funds are extremely highly regulated industries or topics, and I warn not to poke those bears.
What about property? I guess that would be equally as difficult, especially if you have a mortgage.
Not like weapons and self-managed super. They're the two key hot topics that they want control over.
So explain the hats then. Can you, explain how you can
All right,
manage.
so Kaedy talked on just a minute ago about these people who threw everything away. What that means is you really need to understand that you do have a straw man, and if you don't quite get that, we've got a video we can send you and give you information on what that's all about. But the straw man,
I'll put it in the chat now, Tahlia.
Thank you so much. So the straw man is an entity that is created, and it has your birth name in it, but it's not you. Okay. And so that straw man has a lot of benefits or privileges, if you'd like to call it that, such as Medicare, such as Centrelink benefits. And there are a number of people who want to go, oh, this sucks. I don't like the straw man. You know, you created that. I don't want anything to do with it. And they throw the entity away. So they get rid of their birth certificate, they get rid of their passport, they throw their driver's license in the toilet, and they want nothing to do with that entity. Okay, that's fine. But to do that means you actually can't even have a bank account. And so you really need to, if you want to go down that path, and that's how you want to express your sovereignty, go for gold, but you need to be really well resourced, and you need to be in Kelly's meeting every day to work out how to be self-reliant. Okay? If you want to, though, you can go, I do know that there's a straw man, and I know that the benefits of the straw man are that I can actually access to get a bank account, and I can do things with my straw man, but I can also tuck it away and have a PMA, and I can live in the living man, and I can use them as I see fit. But I'm not identifying as my straw man. I'm just using that entity where I want to.
Maybe it's some people might understand it better if you say that you become the authorized representative or someone who can represent the straw man estate when you
So then
need
how
to.
does that work when you have to represent the straw man, and then when you're not, like, how do you do both? I don't know. That probably wasn't a bad
Good question. The first thing is to understand what's going on. If you don't get it, if you can't really like separate the two, and that's a process. Like, I can't just press a button today and you got it. Don't you? You just got it. I can't do that. That takes time, and it actually takes a whole lot of light bulbs going off, and it's called cognitive dissonance. You've all heard of that before. And what it is you've been on a train of thought going this way, and then all of a sudden here I am saying, actually, you can go this way. That is an emotional process that you have to go through to go, holy crap, all this time I've been thinking it's this way, and it's really this way. Are you kidding me? Like, if I said to you, your birth certificate is traded on the stock exchange, if I said to you the original registration statement that your mum signed to get a birth certificate is equivalent to $11 million when your placenta's delivered, you would go, what? I thought it was just a piece of paper so I could get ID. No, it's not. So the first thing in terms of pulling out the public and private is you need to understand these things. You need to have your head around what is this straw man thing, and
why,
and what is it, and why was it made, and then go, okay, all right, that's the first step. I understand that. Second thing is, how do I then live that out? Like what Kelly's asking. So, Kaedy, you want to tell them how you sign your license?
Signing your license, you just you sign your name as usual, and you can just write all rights reserved and authorized representative just along with it. And people say, oh, they won't let you do that. Yes, they do, because it's your right. And just further to what you were saying earlier, Tahlia, when you're saying you've got rights and you don't have them unless you express them, people really need to understand that they're God-given rights that you're talking about. It's not just the ones that they tell us that we've got. And there might be people in the room who aren't spiritual at all, and that might make them go like this, but it doesn't matter whether it's Buddha or Allah or Christ or whoever it is you answer to, whatever. It's just your God-given right. You've got to understand that you already have those. It's so important to sui juris.
So really, when you're standing opposite the lady at the counter at the roads and traffic counter, and you got to sign your autograph, and you write, sign your autograph, all rights reserved, or UCC, whatever you want to put under there, and you're signing it, and the lady goes, you can't do that.
It's about calling bluff.
And you go, are you a lawyer?
That's it. It's about calling bluff. And we had, for example, when my family and I were in hotel quarantine, and they came to the door and they said, you need to do the nasal swabs now. And I said, you're not touching us. Yes, you have to. I said, you're not touching us. It's $60,000 fine if you don't. Well, you're not touching us. You're going to go to jail for 6 months. I said, you're not going to touch us. Do you know? And they bluffed and they bluffed and they bluffed until on day 24, they held us and held us and held us. They didn't do any of those things. They ended up letting us go. And then they sent me a horrible bill. Now you owe me 16,000. I was like, I'm not paying it. Like you've got to know and have it's stoicism just to know what your rights are, and call their bluff. It's so important.
And bluff is one word to put it, or their offer.
Their offer, yes.
They're just going, we think, it's 16,000.
Amber's story is coming to mind. Amber with her private plates might be something to share.
Yeah, share that.
There is an amazing woman in the Living Council who, apart from this story, she actually took Coles. She represented herself against Coles and went all the way to Supreme Court because of the jab mandate. She lost on a technicality at the end, but she says now, I tell you what, she's like, if we started again, she said, I would wipe the floor with them knowing what I know now. But she has private plates and on her car, drives around without normal registration. She's got her plates registered with another company overseas. It's like something like $37 for 7 years, is it, Tahlia, that she was paying for registration?
Yeah,
something like that.
For the UCC.
For the UCC, yeah. And so she had her plates registered, and therefore a company in Australia here did give her insurance. So she had a registered car and it was insured. And it was actually on Mother's Day, and she had her 2 little girls with her, and she was at the beach. She went for a surf, got out of the surf, and there's 2 cop cars parking her car in and 3 police officers standing by her car. And she walked over to them, and she's a bit of a country bumpkin. She's like, what's going on, fellas? And they said, do you own this car? And she said, well, I have a beneficial interest in this car. The reason she said that is because that car is in her trust that she has set up, and she's the beneficiary of the trust, right? But the trust has now put a barrier between her and the liability. The trust is liable, not her as a beneficiary. And they said, okay, do you have a license? She said, well, the state's got a license. I'm a authorized representative. So then they started rolling their eyes. Are you one of those living women? To which she just completely ignored them. Then they said, well, your car's unregistered and therefore it's uninsured. And she said, actually, it is registered and it is insured. They said, show us the documentation. Can you show it to us? First of all, I love this part, Tahlia. First of all, she said, absolutely. But she just wanted to let them know that they couldn't ruin her day, and they were cold because they just got out of the surf. So she took her 2 little girls to the beach shower that was like 10 or 15 meters away where the cops could still see them. And she took 20 minutes to wash her little girls' hair and dry their hair and dress them and everything. They moseyed on back to the car, and she went, oh, you fellas are still here. And they said, yeah, because we need to see your documentation. She said, well, actually, before we go down that road, she said, I actually do have my documentation, but just let's get something clear. Are you guys working out of a police station that has an ABN? And they said, I don't know. Knowing too well that she would find it, she looked it up on her phone and showed them, yes, you do. And it's actually traded on the stock exchange. Therefore, you guys are working as a part of a corporation. Therefore, you're doing commerce. And we all know, don't we, that commerce can only communicate with through contracts. So you've just offered me through a contract for me to show you my documentation, and I'm going to give you a counter offer, and that is that here you go, I'll open my documents and show you for $1,200, and the minute I do that, my clock starts and it's $3,000 an hour for the first so many hours. And she started trying to hand her documentation to these police officers. Do you think they'd take it? They would not take it. She's, here, officer, you want to see my documentation? Here it is. Like, and they didn't want to do it. So they ended up leaving. They just drove away and left her. And there were some members in our group who were newer at the time, and they said, but what if you got one of those coppers who wasn't as nice, right? We all know there's lots of those. What if you got one of those coppers that, put you in cuffs and took you down to the station? And this is why I love this girl so much. She's like, look, we know what we know and we can't unknow it. And I've got 2 little girls and I don't want them to grow up and have to do this. And so this is the path that I've chosen. And in my mind, I knew that they could take me to the cop shop and there's a toilet. They have to give me a blanket and feed me. And in those 3 days that they can keep me, I know how to stay in the private and I know how to step into the public when I need to. And when I get out, I can get recourse for having been falsely arrested. And in my mind, it was the lesser of two evils. Me do 3 days now uncomfortably and set an example, or me let my children have to deal with this when I'm older. And I just think, like, amazing. So she obviously has a bit more of a risk appetite than a lot of people.
Probably more than me too, but it's being around people like that that helps you go, oh, I can tell you, get off my land.
Yep. Yeah. And everybody's so scared of the ATO and all of these big government departments, right? But when you really think about it, when you go further through our process, you start to realize, hang on, the government department is just a number on a piece of paper. And there's all of these people who are, be careful here, possibly quadruple jabbed going to work, who don't know what the person in the office next to them is doing, and they're all just shuffling pieces of paper around, right? Like, it's not, all of a sudden it's not as scary as it used to be. Yeah, so
yeah. And especially when you're hearing stories and you're around other people who are brave. And we just had my son on the Zoom tonight, and he's 19 and he's been to court over being pulled over for no P plates. And then all the rest of the people in the space in the Zoom were like, oh, if a 19-year-old little whatever can do that, then I can do that. So there's about courage. All of you are on here, right? And if you don't roll over and you don't burn your bees, and you go, no, I'm not burning my bees, mate. That's my honey. That's my thing, and I'm doing this. And I put a lot of time, sweat, and energy into caring for those bees and getting them to where they are today. And you want me to destroy them? I'm not rolling over. And then one person just says, I'm not rolling over. And then another person gets heavy-handed with their chickens. You need to give us your chickens. There's a fear. And then they go, hang on, someone else didn't burn their bees. I don't think I have to give up my chickens. And if enough people start to share this stuff in Kelly's group, like, you just talk, and if enough people do that and stand up in their inalienable rights, then eventually we're going to create a world where our kids can grow up and not have to be that courageous.
That's where everyone has their boiling point, right? And for me, it was the farmers and our food and their animals. And that's where I got to, hang on, there's not enough people standing up saying no. And if somebody else, their boiling point is, you're not going to take money away, or my taxes, or to take away my license, you just have to have that one reason for you to want to stand up and start saying no, to be able to give you that courage to say no again, and to help others to say no. And I think the difference between our conversation 2 weeks ago and this conversation is that you can really feel there's a process, and that that there's the confidence in knowing that process and doing that education, and knowing where to start. That really makes the difference. So
can I just mention, I know you've got a question in there, that nothing is foolproof, because we're living in a world of lies. And so you could try something all very lawful, all really standing in your sui juris with as much confidence as you can, and still be beaten down. And you could still be the one that their lies trump on. But I'm a Christian, and I'm a firm believer that if you pray your way through life, you have a God who is for you and not against you. And so that is one weapon that no amount of law or anything can come up against. So that would be one thing I would say. But also just having that recognition and going, I'm doing something that may not work. That's okay, because like you said, Kelly, there's a tipping point. And here's the thing. Let me tell you about something. In North Korea, You can't access the internet. You don't know that there are more countries out there. They don't actually tell you there are more countries. You're scared of your neighbor because your neighbor can dob you in if you say the wrong thing about the guru at the top. We are heading to a very communistic world in Australia. And if you don't know that now, you need to wake up, and you need to wake up fast, because Australia is coming so fast in that direction that if you have children, that's enough for you to have a boiling point right now. Because if you've seen the last 20 years and how much our country has changed and how many rights have eroded and how afraid the people are around you, then you can only imagine what 20 more years is going to be like. And if you have children, that's enough for you to do what you need to do now, in my opinion. And you guys are all in a Zoom at 8 p.m. at night learning how to be self-reliant. I'm talking to the right people here. You know, you're responsible people. Well, it takes these sort of people who have children and go, man, oh man, if this doesn't change now, if I don't start to take the courage right now to do the little tiny bit that I can do, my kids are going to have more courage. And you know what it's like out there, and you know what they're being taught right now? Not courage.
100%. That's why I put together the festival in October, for all these reasons that you just said. Is that one of the there's a few videos that have come past lately, and I put them into our chat group, and one of them talked about, and I don't like to get political, and we don't, but understanding exactly what's coming, you know, the 2030 agenda, with the climate change and how they want to, what foods they want us to be eating and so forth. We need to know how we can be self-reliant as a community, because doing our little bit is important, but doing it on a scale will make such a difference. And so that's what we have planned in this festival from the 18th to the 20th of October. Now, notwithstanding the fact that I love that we can be self-reliant in terms of our food security, in terms of our personal security, our cyber security, our law security, being able to stand up for ourselves. At the end of the day, it's not how we die that counts, it's how we live. And I love what you said, Tahlia, and I am also have a deep spiritual belief and know that God has our back, and that if we pray and we have that relationship, that we can receive that inspiration and guidance to know how to maneuver. And at the end of the day, it's how we show up in the world that will make the biggest difference. Who we get to be. You know, we all have challenges. We all have things that no one has an easy life, right? But how we show up with those challenges makes all the difference. And the legacy that we can leave behind, the faith that we can move through our challenges with. So day one of the festival is really all about us starting with healing ourselves, healing our heart, healing, and, you know, going through this journey, I believe also with the Living Council, and I said it last week, is that when we're actually standing in our power, it's like having the Force, right? As a Jedi Knight, being able to wield that lightsaber with power and with conviction, and, you know, most of their power is up here. You know, and that's who we get to be, comes from up here and in here. And so, you know, taking on a PMA and doing that training, learning step by step, takes the power back for us individually. and not even leaving it to the Living Council or leaving it to an expert to, do the paperwork for us. No, we've got to step into our own power and become it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing that keeps us feeling like we are powerless is we hear of this one little story where something happened and we go, it's going to happen to me. Well, I've been running this Living Council for a year now, and there are many stories out there, and people talk about a target being on your back when you do this sort of thing. They're going to come after you, Tahlia. If you get public about this, if you put your name out there, they're going to come after you. Well, there's a choice there too, to go, you know what, they're actually not going to come after me. And I'm not going to live in fear that they're going to take my chick. Maybe they've taken someone's, because they will talk it out. They will put it out there, and they'll make an example of a tiny little case. They said that there were this many people who had the virus, and I would challenge that. I would say there were far less people than what they said there was. And so you can sit there in fear, oh, I'm going to get rid of my chickens just in case they do. But the chances of them coming after you, and here we are, like, standing up. I'm pretty public about this. As you can see, I didn't ask you to sign anything to come into this space and have a conversation with you. And no one's come after me. And I'm public. So the chances of them coming after you, there's a lot of fear. Let's just put that where that belongs, and that's in the toilet. Michelle had a question, Kelly.
Michelle, come and ask your question.
I've got two questions. One is related to personal assets and protecting property. So does a PMA protect a house or, your private property, or does that have to be under a trust structure? And what are the best options to protect your private property house with things like digital deeds coming in and things like that? That's my first.
Really good question. At the moment, like I said, we've been 12 months in the running. So there are so many topics coming at us, of which property is one of them, tax is one of them, business is one of them, banking is one of them. There's just a lot of them. At the moment, we are focusing on the living man first and everything to do with that. The way we operate is we have three ways that we reach people. The first is in Zooms. The second is in an app called Circle. And the third is through a course, okay? And we teach. But then in the background, so that's what we have. And then the Living Council also researches. So it's like saying, you can spend hours researching on your own how to protect your property, or collectively, let's all work together. And we have a little research team studying this. Like, we had one research team studying smart meters and what to do with those. And then we had another research team studying mortgages and discharging debt and what the banking fraud is going on. So we have all these little research teams studying things, of which property is one of the things we want to study. I do know that through alloidial title, if you want to write that down, you can transfer alloidial titles with a gold coin, because the digital is all about taking away things that have value. And so currency is just credit, and it's all sort of funny money. It doesn't really actually exist, but there is a way to do it through gold coin. Do I know exactly what that is? No, not yet, but it's part of our research team to figure that out. And then we have a group of people who say, I want to test that, and I'm doing it at my own risk. And we go, cool, let's get a few people together. We'll test that stuff and check it out, see if we can get it to happen. I know that there's a couple who have transferred their property title over via a gold coin through a alloidial title. So I do know it's possible. I don't know exactly what that is just yet.
Thank you. I'll be interested in that, because I'd heard, I know about alloidial title, but when I'd searched for it, it seemed that there was only one example in Australia of someone being allocated that, and they had Aboriginal heritage, and it was a very specific case. So if other people have done it, I'd be very interested in that.
Yeah, for sure. So bear with us and be part of that. the structure of, do you put your property into a PMA or into a trust structure? Personally, I would lean more towards a trust structure for property. PMA would be something where you've got interactions and dealings going on, or business going on, as opposed to a trust structure. And the type of trust that you would do would be dependent on who you would have as the trustee, the beneficiary, and the grantor. But there are rules that you can write in there that mean, so if you put your trust into, say, an inter vivos trust, and then when you passed, it was no longer in a will, they can't touch it. And you never will go into probate with that. So there are structures. I'm not a trust expert. In fact, it like overwhelms me like nothing else. But we do have people in our group who are quite experienced in that. And there's a lady called Raywin. Raywin usually charges $1,500 to help people write up a trust, but she's got a partnership with us where people get it much more reduced, only a couple of $100 and you'll have change, and you can have your trust and have a consult with her one-on-one. So I'm sorry, I don't want to be vague. Being just honest, that's all.
Okay, thank you. And the other question was more to do with like organization. So I've got an organization that's looking at doing a PMA for its structure. I'm helping them set up a website and the back end things. And one problem that we've come across is that to take online payments through something like Stripe, they want an ABN. So is that an example of needing to live in both worlds, where we may have to set up some kind of corporate structure with an ABN and then have the PMA? And
I'm going to give you a high level overview. It sounds like you've got this, but what you do is you set up the trust and you make the trust completely in the public, and you set it up with an ABN, and then anything that requires an ABN has the trust. But the beneficiary of that trust is buried down away into an unincorporated association or members association. And then any benefits that come from that trust arrangement are hidden in a second layer. It's called a trust web. And an unincorporated association is very hard to get a bank account for. So what you do is you bridge that. So you get the bank account and you apply and you put all of the articles of association, tick all of their boxes, make sure the banks are happy. Then once you've got that approved, you write up minutes to change the whole thing. The bank doesn't know about the minutes. They don't require them. Maybe in 5 years' time, they might say to you, and I've spoken to bank managers saying, what happens when it changes? We just ask you from time to time, are there any changes you want to report? No, nothing. And then you put the beneficiary over to the side and they don't touch that unincorporated. So you as a living man or woman are the next layer down underneath the unincorporated association. So they don't know who it is.
Yeah, okay. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Of course, good questions. You are smart, Michelle. We should keep talking. And Ray's got his hand up. Did you want me to take that, Kelly?
Yeah, Michelle's very clever. I just wanted to, I promised Jen in the chat that we would answer her question about the trespass sign. She wants to know if the trespass sign, we showed it in our chat group, if it was applicable to Victoria. Do they change from state to state, or it's just what you put on it that makes difference? I don't think that it had necessarily a New South Wales information on it, so, but do you know? And I asked Barry.
Okay, so where are our borders? They're 13 miles out to sea. So during COVID, when they tried to break us down into states and they said, you can't cross the border, you can go, well, I'm not crossing the border. It's 13 miles out to sea. That's where our border is. We're in a Commonwealth of Australia. There are states and there are state things. Queensland's probably the most iffy because Queensland, Kaedy, do you want to just explain Queensland state?
What, that they don't have an upper house? Is that what we're talking about? Who can explain that? I mean, seriously, what is Palachuk doing? No, I don't know if everyone knows. I'm guessing that these crew would be pretty well versed that when in Parliament we have to have a lower house and we have to have an upper house, and that's how parliaments are structured. So if there wants to be a new law brought in, that it has to be passed through, voted in on the lower house, and if there's enough numbers, then they take it to the upper house, and the upper house gets to vote on it, and if they say yes, then we continue on. Queensland just does not have an upper house. We just don't have one.
How can they get away with that?
How can any, I mean, honestly, like all the stuff they're getting away with is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what we worry about. They could just, but then, so this is why we need to push back, right? And use our rights and use our voice, because they are obviously using foundations and trusts and things to bury themselves. That's why we can't go after you know, the people who are causing the trouble, because they've got the knowledge to know how to do this stuff, and so that's why we need to take our power back.
When you look at the New South Wales Victoria thing and that trespass notice, you can write, "Get off my land," put it on your thing, and be done. Okay, it really actually doesn't matter what you write, because again, it comes back to your own posture in all of this. There are things that you can put on a trespass notice that just help you a bit and sort of smooth out the road. Be smart about it. Don't put New South Wales if you're in Victoria. Don't put Queensland if you're in New Zealand. You got to be smart, but you don't need to think it's the piece of paper that stops them. It's you.
So true. So, do you want to answer any of the questions that are coming through in the chat? And then, you know, we won't continue too much longer, but I do want to say that we are, I don't know if I can confirm tonight. Can I confirm that you guys will be coming to our festival and that we'll be able to have this conversation at the festival?
The cat came out of the bag. Oh my goodness, the cat came out of the bag. Did you just do that? Yeah, I'll just have to give you a big squeeze when I see you, Kelly. You might get both of us, man.
Yeah, well, that's what we want. That's what we want. We definitely want you both at the festival, and where we can go through this, you know, in person, and really, there's a few topics in there that I will be launching very soon, and our guest speakers. So that, yes, that's a little bit of a heads up, everyone. Get your festival tickets. Early birds closes very soon. I'm only going to keep the early bird open for another couple of days. And it's really cheap. It's like $150 per person, or $300 for a family. And the family doesn't even stipulate how many kids. It's just families. So that is crazy, crazy prices.
And can I just mention something there, Kelly? I'm just going to cut in for a sec, because you know when you're listening to, you know, when you go to a concert and you're there, and then you've got the audio. So I couldn't make the concert, but Kaedy could go to the concert, and I got the video or the DVD, or what is it, the audio, Apple Music Play, whatever it is. Okay, Kaedy went, I listened to it. There's a huge difference between going to a concert, because it's same music, all right, but it's the environment, it's the people, it's the feeling, and something shifts in you when you're in an environment and you're around the people. Because even if the talks are recorded and Kaedy and I go down and there's all these other speakers that are going to be there, that's great, you know, and sure, you could probably get the recording, but it's not the same. You know, it's just not the same as when you're in the concert and you're rubbing shoulders and you can smell someone's stinky breath and that person says something, and you just got this feeling, don't you? And isn't it? Aren't we just human? We are feeling beings. And so it's like when you're in that space and you're with other people and someone just says a word and it's just a passing comment, and you could have missed that if it was just the recordings that you get. And even watching someone come down from a stage and you see how they you know, honor the person next to them, you don't get that on a recording, but you get to see it because you're there in person. And so when it comes to an invitation like this, and you know the content is of value, you know the type of speakers that you're going to get, that's great. But just bear in mind that the value you're going to get is in everything else. It's all those in-between bits. It's the glue that really stays with you, and it gives you that impetus afterwards. Make sense?
Perfect.
So if I'm going, you need to go. And if you're not there, why are you not there?
That's right.
Yeah.
Come, there's lots of places. There's camping is on site, is included in the price. And if you don't like camping, there's plenty of places to stay. You can glamp on site, actually. Don't have to set up a tent, just walk into your glamping. And or you can stay close by off site and just come in every day. So there's options for everyone. So I hope everyone gets their ticket and come in person. Just like Tahlia said, there's nothing better. It's 3 full days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And you're just going to get immersed in so much goodness. We have so much up our sleeves as well, lots of fun things, including a barn dance. When's the last time any of you went to a barn dance?
Man, I'm in on that. Can you
I'll get into that.
I don't dance. If anyone grabs my hand for a dance, I'll be going, bye-bye. I'll watch you.
Yes, 2 weeks ago. Good on you, Joshua. Love it. Love it. Now, did you scroll back and was there anything jumping out at you that you need to answer, or should we?
So there was a couple of things in there about tax, which is like the biggest burden, right? For so many people, they're just under this thing of tax. So you all know that the ATO is a foreign company, and so foreign companies are not allowed to tax residents. So it's highly illegal what's going on. They will never, ever admit that, but it is. The tax forms that you get, have you ever noticed in the paper forms that there are blank pages? And you flip over and there's a blank page. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes, this page is left blank intentionally. You go, why?
Yeah. And that those pages are meant to be written on. And then there's parts of the form that are not meant to be written on, but you're never trained to do what, because that form is for ATO staff. You're not ATO staff. And yet it's implied that you need to fill it out. And so we're just not equipped and we're not given all the information, are we? We don't know, oh, that page actually has to have something written on it. And that page I don't actually have to fill in, because we're so drilled into thinking, we think that the English were the first to Australia. Well, that's a lie. Did I just make anyone's light bulb go off? Did you know that the English were not the first to Australia? But that's okay. You and I, we went to school and we learned a certain thing. Same with tax. We go to school and in growing up, we're taught you have to do this. Truth is, you don't. Truth is, it wasn't the English that landed here first. It was the Dutch. Okay? Yeah, Andrew. It was Andrew. He came here first. He's so young. And so with that in mind, the way you handle the ATO, you just need to relearn a few things. And it's not something that I can say, just tick this box and cross that box. We will teach you that. At the moment, like I said, we've got a research group and we've got a proven, predictable, step-by-step process. We're about to release a course on that, on how to fill in your ATO forms so that you're not paying tax. But then if you have your PMA set up and you just paying somebody a sustenance, then they're not being paid. There's no income. Income tax is for businesses. It's not for individuals. And you as an individual pay freaking income. That's not on. Why are you doing that? Stop that stuff. Stop that stuff. So we'll teach you how to do that too. Yeah. But do it all. So you're ticking their boxes and just quietly lead. But we don't need to have phone calls to the ATO. Look, I'm a living woman. I don't do that. That's just aggressive. That's belligerent. And that's just going to end you with a target on your back. But if we just tick things the way they're supposed to be written, because You're not meant to have income tax. You just traded your time and you got money for your time. You got sustenance. It's a different way of thinking, guys. It's all just, whew, geez, can I change the gears when I don't have a license? If they take the license away from me, do I all of a sudden become dumb and don't know how to drive? Of course you know how to drive. But for some reason, we think we can't get into a car. Am I being facetious? A bit too much? A bit heavy-handed, sorry.
Tahlia, what about we had recently we had an ATO agent join our group. loveliest lady, and I was on the hunt for somebody who was an accountant who was aware, right? I don't like awake, but aware of everything. And I knew she was from all of her other posts. I went snooping on Facebook and we brought her into our research group and we were showing her things. And this woman's been working for what, like, I don't know, 20 years or something for the ATO, longer than that. And her face, just every now and then, her face, she'd just go, oh, that's why they do X. Oh, and just all the pennies were dropping. She was like, so you're telling me? And we go, yep. And she's like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. It was just amazing to watch this woman. We watched her go from that direction to that one, like you said before.
she had to take like a week or two. She's like, I don't know if I can attend
Unbelievable.
this research. It's just like my head it's too much for me to.
She's like, I know what you guys are saying is true because now I realize what all those weird things were. Like now I know what it was, you know, what the process is set up for. I understand it now, which is crazy.
Okay, got a question. Last time we talked about the Royal Register de Jure. Could you give us your opinion on that? No.
Should I put it how I said to you this today, Tahlia?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we make it a point of we don't want to run anyone down. There's so many groups in this space and most of them, all of them have really knowledgeable, very well learned, lovely people. I would never say that there was anything that was a scam. All I can say is I speak to people most 5 days a week of people that have been out, and all of these people are looking and joining other groups and trying to join us, trying to find, you know, their tribe or whatever you want to call it. And all I can say is in the last 4 weeks alone, I've had 12 people tell me that they've given that particular company some money and have got nothing for it. So I'm not saying it's, I'm not going to say that it's a scam, but 12 people have told me that they're very unhappy with what's happened in the last.
But if we just take it away from even that and we just go to concept level for a minute, okay?
Yeah.
So am I going to take my registration, regis means king, and so I'm letting whoever I register with be the king of whatever I register. That's what registration means, king, registration. So if I am going to register my stuff away from the corporation known as the roads and traffic, whatever that is, and then turn it over to some other royal registry, what's my difference? Where am I standing in that? When a PMA is enough. Because you're saying these are my rules, I'll stand on my rules, and I can stand in trust law. So you're still standing in the jurisdiction and under legislation and law when you're registering. But if you just take it right up to trust law and you take it right out of that jurisdiction altogether, why do you need to register it anywhere?
It's just another middleman.
It is another middleman. And the thing that frustrates me, and can I just be, are we cool here? We're cool? Are we friends? Yeah? All right. So the thing that frustrates me to no end, and you will hear me say this, and I went off today, like I went off my nana about something that came up, is that in this space, because people feel vulnerable, and people are vulnerable because there's so much oppression going on. And I'll put it to you, the main enemy is the banks. Okay? That's the enemy. It's not the government. And it's not the police force. They're all just controlled by the banks. Okay, so the main enemy is the banks. And where am I going with this? So there's banks, they come at you with all this confusing ATO forms and confusion. And you and I are sitting here going, I was educated this way. I have no idea what all of that means. What does law mean? How does it all work? And where do I fit into it? I'm confused. And now I'm feeling oppressed and I'm feeling oppressed. And then some shark wanders along and says, I'll save you. I'll save you. Just pay me this much money and I'll save you. And because you're feeling vulnerable, you can go, oh, finally, I've got some answers. And so when it comes to this space, it's about finding who you resonate with and looking at the values of that person, because as even Jesus says, you can say one thing with your mouth, but it's by your fruit you will tell. What's the fruit of the people who you're wanting to align with? That works with, common law groups. It works with self-reliance groups. The fruit of this group is beautiful. And you can tell by the relationships, you can tell by the integrity in this space, you can tell by the way that everybody's communicating. Has anyone sworn on this? No one. So the fruit of this group is a positive fruit. And you can go, by that fruit, I know I can trust Kelly and this group. So you look at the fruit and then you determine, is this somebody that I can trust? And in the common law space, I'm just going to tell you right now, there are so many sharks out there. Be careful. It's hard because everybody wants to be private. Well, we do. We put ourselves up in a very private members association. So you want to be part of us, you're going to have to join our members association. Then you can have everything. But the way we work it is it's $1,200 to join our group. If you can do, a weekly payment, $60 a week over 5 or 6 months, whatever that works out to be, you can come in 1 week, you can come in 2 or 3 weeks, decide that's not for me, finish, and you don't owe anything else. Now that just says we've got nothing to hide. We're not going to be ripped off either. So that's where it's like, use your common sense, people, because there's just too many people out there trying to get people while they're hurting, and it's not cool. There's the mama in me.
So I love I wanted to bring it up and share actually one of the statements that you put out as to who you are. And I don't know, Kaedy or Tahlia, if you can find it quickly and we can, or I can find it while you're speaking next. But I wanted to share the foundation on which you stand.
Yeah, the members
Exactly.
agreement.
Yeah, let me give you sharing rights.
I'll just get it up 1 sec.
And because I think this is fundamental, it really just talks about who you are and who the Living Council is, and it's really super important that you can align yourself. And you might doesn't mean you have to all have all the same beliefs, but when you know where someone else stands, it gives you that confidence. So some people are just asking, you can find this recording on my YouTube channel, Kelly Wilkins. I'll put in actually a link with all my links on there and all the different ways that you can follow. So yeah, let's all take a look at this.
Right, so this is our members agreement. You can see it's one of 24 pages and it's got a lot in it. And it's got things like, what are our principles? What does it mean to be a member? What are the fees? What are the benefits? Where your immunity is, where there's a board, what the security is and non-disclosure, what you can and can't share. What in particular?
Oh, yes. Go to, I think it's the next page.
Principles and values here.
The principles here. The principles, this UMA is an unapologetically, can't say it, Christian-based community. Can you?
So this here. So this UMA is unapologetically a Christian-based community. Although we're not exclusively for Christians, we believe that God is the creator and ruler of the world. Jesus is God's son who lived, died, and rose again. Salvation from sin is a free gift, but we must accept it. The Holy Spirit lives in Christians and guides them. So what we did was we sat down as a group and we went, what are the things that are our principles? These are things that will never change. So that it's a Christian group will never change. We're community focused, and we're about being the process is for ourselves, but it's not by ourselves. So you want to move into the private, you want to do the secured party creditor process, you can do that for yourself. And that's about taking your own ownership and responsibility, but you're not all by yourself trying to study it, work out what the next step is and make mistakes and fumble through this. Then truth and transparency is important to us. So sometimes I'll be a little bit too truthful. Is that possible? Then we're transparent. We'll tell you the truth. Now, we don't know the answer to that. Like Michelle asked a question before, and it's like, well, let's be transparent here. We want to find the answer to that. We don't have it just yet. But we work together, and freedom is a principle. Values can sometimes change, but these are the ones that are important: honor and respect, self-responsibility, and action. And so within honor and respect, these are the three that are most important: love, being servant-hearted, and having gratitude and thanksgiving. So this is what we decided as a group we would stand by. And so as a group, you feel it. You feel it. I mean, the vibe, you remember the vibe. Does that help?
Yeah, that's 100%. And I love that. And as soon as I read that, I thought, when you can read something that you can say, yes, I align with that, or at least I appreciate that, then I think that you know who you're dealing with. And so if anyone has that question, so then tell us, go ahead and say, so if you decide to find out more about the Living Council, what's the first step for people? What can they expect?
Cool. All right. So we actually we interview you to see whether you're a fit. And that's because we really treasure, we're not about, our purpose is to help the one. Okay. So if I can help this one little family, and then this one little family, and then this one little family, great. Then you've got a group. Many common law groups will be about, let's get a group of people and take over the nation. We're not like that. We're about one family. Just help the one, and then help the one. Okay? That's important, because then from that, you're coming from a place of strength once the numbers are there. So with that in mind, we don't need you. And put that out there. We're not after you as a crowd. However, we think we could help you. Okay? So what that means is, when you come on, we give you the website, you can have a look at it. So there's not a lot on the website. That's because we're private, and we keep the information away from the prying eyes to protect our members. Then you just inquire. What will happen is you'll get an automated email, and in that email, there'll be a couple of videos, and blessed are you get to hear me again. And so those videos will give you some information, a little bit on history, a little bit on what we're all about, and you'll have links to follow. There's two things to join our membership. The first thing is read the document that Kelly just showed you. You read it through, see if it aligns. You can see that you can join and you can come on trial, or you can just join and just take it all, right? And then you just do a deposit, like your $60 weekly payment, or your monthly payment, or your full payment, whatever that is. It's $1,200 for a single, or $2,000 for a family, and that's it. And that's forever. And then once you have done that, we invite you into an app called The Circle, so the Living Council Circle. And in that app, you have a course. Can I just share my screen on that? One sec.
Yep.
I'll show you the course so you can see what it looks like. Where is it? All right, you can see my screen there. So you've got, this is the circle, and down here we have our course. So we've got starting place. And then when you go into starting place, I'll just show you the back end. This is my side. So you'll see there's all these different lessons over here. And it's like, who are we? What do we do? What are we all about? And you go into the different lessons. Oops. Sorry, you're seeing the back end. And then there's videos, and they're short little videos, and there's a little bit of a description. And the course has many different parts to it. So in here, we've got the starting place, come alive, Australian Taxation Office, not so smart meters, expressing the trust and traveling in private, banking and trusts, how to set up your UMA is in that one. And so that's the course you have access to. Then you also have access to community conversations. So we have a frequently asked questions. This lady here asked a question about the affidavit, and she said, what do I do about the highlighted part? And then we've got clarification on what numbers go into your templates. And then you can go in and you can read the full threads or any of these things down here. We've got research groups, chat by topic. And then we've got in here our events. So we have a Living Council meetup once a week. Next week, we've got all things crypto. And then we've got trusts and UA conversation. You can see there's a variety of different things that we have running at different times, and you can tap into any of those events. You can see over here in the events tab that we've got a whole calendar full of stuff. Because I have shocking sleep, we keep everything to, and that's just my little weakness. We keep it most things to during work hours, and we have set times for different events. And they're usually like later in the afternoon or not evenings. And that's deliberately for my benefit. So in those events, that's when we get together, just like tonight, and we have a chat and we get to discuss specific topics. So tonight we talked about police, and I gave everybody something to put on their visor. So when the lights go off and the cop comes up to you and you say, hey, I noticed your emergency light's on. Is there an emergency? How can I help? And there's a question up there on your visor. And so in the course, it's about you and your process and what you need to do with getting power of attorney, getting your birth documents, how to set up a security agreement, getting your UMA set up. All of that's in the course. But when we meet weekly, we're talking about little nitty-gritty things like the police. And then that's when we'll give you the visor thing to put in your car, or what to do about expressing yourself. Like tonight, you know what that's like. I mean, Kelly runs a much better meeting than I do, so you got the feel of what that is. I think the biggest thing most people come into is they're like, I don't like being stuck and I want to be free. The biggest thing most people get out of it is community. It's the most fascinating thing, how much we are community oriented, isn't it? Yeah, and that's why COVID was, you got to step 6 feet away from somebody or whatever that was, and you can't get together with other people because they were trying to attack the one thing we all need: community. We need each other. 100%. And I need you just as much as you need me.
Yeah, beautiful. Andrew said 100%. Yep, that's all of us. Kaedy, anything else that you saw in the chat that you want to answer? Any questions that came up? Anything else that you want to add? Oh, come off mute first.
I might like to say that I have met a few of your members. A couple of people from your group have joined the Living Council, and I really personally clicked with them straight away. So I love the caliber of people that you've got in your group, and I'm looking forward to meeting more of you if we do make the trip down to the festival. And or if you choose to send an inquiry, it'll be me that gives you a call and has a chat. So looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. Well, we really appreciate you being here. I know there's still more questions, and of course everyone's your course goes for how long? If people were to do your course, how long would it take them to put themselves through?
You know what? If you gave yourself 6 months with 2 to 4 hours a week, you would smash through and you would be a different person in 6 months' time. But it will feel a lot longer because you will have learned so much stuff. It'll feel like 5 years, but it will only be, about 6 months, and you can really feel like you're on top of the world.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. So I asked that by means of saying, if you didn't get your questions answered here tonight, don't worry.
Yes.
You've got 6 months to, work at them out. Do the course with Tahlia. Thank you so much, everyone, for getting on tonight. Thanks, Tara. That was beautiful. Thank you, everyone, for your sending in your questions and for your participation. Just being here is really, it's, sends a message to me that keep doing what we're doing, because, you being here, it gives me that boost to keep doing what we do. So appreciate all of you. And in 2 weeks' time, when we come back for our next Zoom, it's really all about you. So the topic is, how do you handle your health when they're trying to kill us? Through our air and water and food, you all have things that you do that keep you healthy and sane. So we're going to have it be really interactive. You're going to be able to type your answers into your phone, and everyone's answers will land up on my screen all at once, and it'll be beautifully interactive. We'll have some health experts to come on and share some aspects of, what works. But we'd love to hear what you do. So join us again in 2 weeks' time. And, that's really a valuable one, because we all know that, there's so much rubbish in our food, and, we can get concerned when it rains, but there's things that you do that keep us well. And if you're in our Telegram group, check out my little video from today where I did the good old white vinegar test to disappear the clouds. So lots of fun things. Guys, this is all self-funded, it does cost for me to run a Zoom and to run websites, and would really appreciate your support. I never ask for donations because I'm terrible at asking for money, but I was challenged during the week to create a Buy Me a Coffee page. And so I'm just putting it out there as a challenge to myself, that if you love what we do and you want to support me, I'll put out my link. If you wish to buy me a coffee, I don't even drink coffee, so it'll be a chai. Then I would love you to. But more importantly, and better than that, if you'd like to join our membership, that just sends me a signal to let me know that you actually really do love what we do and would love to be a part of it. That would be even better. So
can I mention something there, Kelly? Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt there, because it's so hard asking for money, isn't it? Like, have you actually tried it? It's one of the biggest fears people have. And here's the thing. Our group was connected with one in New Zealand. And in New Zealand, they do something called a koha. Is anyone here from New Zealand? Yeah? So you know a koha? It's like a donation. In New Zealand, that is culturally so much more accepted, and people culturally will donate above themselves. In Australia, when it comes to donations, we go, oh, gold coin donation. I don't have to give a $2 coin. I'll just do a $1 because that's still gold. But that's just our culture, is donating is, so it's just not part of our culture. And so why don't you, if this is like, to me, I'm like, free, I'm going to be coming back next time. So if this is something of value, don't let donation get in the way of supporting what Kelly's doing. And, a donation might be like, you think, I'll give $5 or $10. No, that's not what it cost her. Give her $500 or $1,000, because that's what it cost. And the time, is this not worth that to people? Now, she didn't tell me to do this. I'm probably making you feel really uncomfortable, but I'm just saying, I've done the please donate before, and it's just, don't do the same mistake that people did with me. Don't give her a value that is less. And in a sense, sometimes putting a figure out there, I would put it to you, I do $1,200 membership fee. She should be doing $2,000 because it gets so much. And so, $5 is not a donation. Just saying. Okay, you probably all hate me now, so should we wrap it up?
Yeah, and I'm just going to say every little bit helps. But you know, the actually you know, being a hub leader in my book is like the ultimate, because it means that you want to continue to work with me personally, and we can do more together. So I'm just going to put my link tree here so that all the different ways that you can follow me, and, you know, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow me as subscribe as a channel member there. You know, all these good ways that we can actually stay in touch, and we love that the best. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight. And our calls don't normally go this long, but when they're a hot topic like this, then we do have to answer as many questions as we can. So
thanks so much for having us, Kelly, for Kaedy and I just really appreciate what you're doing, and appreciate you thinking that we had something to add of value here. So thank you.
No, our pleasure. And thanks, Emma and Andrew, for introducing us to. Actually, Tahlia and I, just on a side note, met long before we talked about the Living Council through a mutual friend. Tahlia was traveling around the country with her family in a caravan, and I thought, oh, caravanning life, that's amazing. I want to do that. So she hooked me up with Tahlia, and I found all about caravanning and thought, yes, that's what 2024 is going to be about. No, maybe not this year, maybe another year.
And you were even looking at buying our van. How weird is that? And we weren't even like in each other's lives. It's just so funny how God puts people together, isn't it?
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, so good. Bless you, Kelly.
Beautiful. Thanks, everyone. Dan, how you find out about becoming a hub leader is you send me, you actually can send me an email, send me a message. You can sign up for it. Just give me a shout out, and we'll talk it through and tell you all about it. I'll actually go ahead and put more information on the website so that everyone can find out. But first, that's the first thing to do, is just reach out. So beautiful. I won't go into it right now, but we'll chat again and see you all in 2 weeks' time on the 30th of July. All right. Thanks, Kaedy. Thanks, Tahlia. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.